There are so many grains around. Really, you know, the choices are endless, and beans and so on, and pulses, legumes that we can use as a foundation for many, many dishes. But one that seems to have fallen completely out of fashion is barley. Now barley, what I've done here is I soaked some barley overnight, and then I've cooked it in some very, very lightly salted water until it's tender. It took about 30 minutes. Some barley will take a little bit longer, some less so, but it's one of these grains that is particularly high in fibers, I believe very high in vitamin K. It's a good grain to bring into your diet. Of all the whole grains, it's actually one of the better ones. Now I'm going to kind of make kind of a risotto, and using the term loosely. I know Italians don't like when you do that, but we live with it. And I apologise in advance. So I'm going to use barley, which I've pre-cooked. It's easier to pre-cook barley and it's ready to go then. I'm going to use a red pepper, which are just all the vegetables. When I say chopped, I mean just very, very roughly chopped. One red pepper contains about 110% of your vitamin C requirement. I'm going to use some frozen flageolet or broad beans. Now, you can get lovely packets of frozen ones, but if you can't get those, a can of beans. I just want to bring some protein into this dish, and the beans are a very good way of doing it. Fennel chopped up. If you couldn't get fennel, you could use the celery. Don't be afraid to experiment around a little bit. About 300 grams of tomatoes, just very, very roughly chopped, not much bigger than quarters. Some green sultanas I have, but raisins will be fine. Just don't be afraid to play around. Most importantly, with any anti-inflammatory diet, try build as many green leafy veg in there. This is red chard, which is a close relative to the spinaches. It's a great veg for just getting that iron content and getting those leafy veg into your diet. And also I'm going to use, as a main flavour in here, I'm going to use some nice homegrown thyme. You could use the dried one, but if you can, try to source this one. It's a very easy one to grow in your garden as well, or even in a window box or something like that. Thyme is a good one to have there. I'm going to use a little bit of margarine as well. I'm just going to roughly chop those up and use those to finish, along with some olive oil. Very simple dish, and I hope you enjoy this one. Now for this little dish, first thing, a little bit of coconut oil, about a teaspoon, into my pan. And into the coconut oil, just to get developing flavours, I'm going to straight away put my peppers and my fennel. Again, you could use a bit of celery here, pinch of salt in there. Really good to get fennel. It's, you know, again, don't get too caught up on the details, especially with a dish like this. With patisserie, yeah, you have to follow the recipe. But with this kind of cooking, it's less necessary. Just to speed that along, I'm going to put a little drop of water in there. If you ever find your pan is dry, don't be worried about adding extra oil. That's not what you do. You add a little drop of water. Then you get the lid on there. And let that cook for just a few minutes. Keeping an eye on it as it cooks, just to kind of let it cook down and render down and start developing some flavour. Now after about 5 minutes cooking, I was watching this as it was cooking. I'm going to remove the lid, because when the lid is on there you don't get much colour. And one of the secrets to this kind of Mediterranean-y style food and cookery is to try to get that little bit of kind of slightly roasty taste onto your vegetables. And it's the peppers. You could be using onions here. I decided not to use onions in this one for a change. And I'm going to allow a little bit of colour get on here as well. So take the lid off. I just let them simmer away, or not simmer, just cook away. Keep an eye on it until you get a little bit of that lovely kind of roasty, kind of friedy taste onto this dish, because that'll carry out then through to the whole dish. Just keep an eye as it's cooking. And when you get to that point, as you can see, I don't want much colour on this, just a little bit. I'm going to now add my garlic. I'm using a lot of garlic. Again, you could use less, but for me, garlic has a lot of benefits, both culinary and from an anti-inflammatory viewpoint. I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper in at this stage. And just let that kind of cook a little bit. Don't let your garlic burn, because it goes quite bitter if it starts getting a chance to burn. Now into this,
At this stage, I'm going to add my tomatoes. Let them kind of develop into that kind of nice saucy kind of richness. If you find your pan is a little bit on the dry side, just going to add a drop more water, just to kind of bring that along. Cover it up and let those soften up for about another 3 minutes. They're thereabouts. Now I'm just going to pull the lid off that there. And as you can see, juices coming out of the tomatoes nicely. It's just starting to develop flavour as well. At this point, now again, I'm using a frozen or fresh broadbean, but you could just as easily use the canned ones. Perfectly good. The purpose of this dish is to bring that little bit of protein into the dish, and also they add a lot of flavour and texture as well. So we're just going to cook those for a few minutes there. And I'm also going to add my green sultanas. Now, I like the green ones, there's nice freshness to them. You could use raisins here, normal sultanas, raisins, doesn't really matter. Hell, you could even use dates, chopped up, prunes, even dried cranberries. I just find to give that little hits of sweetness onto the dish, which tends to work very well with this. And again, I'm going to add a little more water in there. If your pan is going in any way dry, and I'm going to add just a pinch of salt in there as well. Do taste it, use your own judgment. I'm going to cover that up again now and just let it all heat up a little bit more and let those flavors infuse a bit better. After about 2 minutes, it's just simmering nicely, depending on your gas flame. That's how it looks now, just a little bit more detail. And I'm going to add all of my barley. So we're going to get this kind of nice kind of risotto-y kind of taste and feel to the dish, for want of a better. Now if you find this is a little bit dry, again add a little bit more water in there. And this is going to be one of those lovely hearty kind of meals, Going to be plenty of flavour here, a lot of texture. Again, not a huge calorie dense, it's something you could, but you're going to find this is the kind of dish that fills you up really well. And into that, again, I'm going to add about another half cup of water. Just as that simmers away and cooks away here. Now don't forget, the ingredients in here are already cooked, so you're more just warming them up. So I'm just going to cover that up and just let that warm up a little bit more. Now I'm just going to lift up my lid now again. As you can see, this is just moist and just heating through nicely. Everything is kind of cooked there at this stage. And now I'm going to add my thyme and my marjoram, which I have now chopped up. Just to put that little hit of flavour there. I had tasted this a second ago, it needs just a pinch more salt. Again, it's down to your own tasting preferences. A little bit more pepper. And next, I'm going to add all of this chard, which has been nicely washed. Now you could, if you have bigger chard leaves, that's great, but just chop it up a little bit first. If you find, and it's a little bit on the dry side at this stage, again, I'm going to drop more water. And we're going to just let that chard cook down into the dish. It'll cook down quite quickly, and then we're going to just mix it through the whole thing. So lid on, in about a minute, just keep an eye on it, and let the hard chard cook down, keeping an eye as it cooks, and make sure it doesn't burn from the bottom as well. Now there's my chard just cooking away there. As you can see, it's getting a little bit dry in my pan. And again, you don't want that, you want a bit of moisture in there. So again, just keep adding water as it's necessary throughout. If you end up putting a little bit too much water, it's not the end of the world. Better than allowing the thing to go dry and then burn on you. Now that's bad. But I just let this cook away there. And even if you add a lot of water, you could even top it up completely and turn this into a kind of a lovely kind of a barley soup, which would be also really nice as well. I just want this kind of more hearty texture. And then, as our chard just cooks down, as you can see, it's all almost ready to go now. I'm just going to finish this finally, checking the seasoning. This nice hearty little dish, I'm going to finish with some good olive oil. I've used about 30 ml, and that brings that nice texture into it, flavour, that oiliness. But use the olive oil at the very end, because you don't want to damage. As I've often said, olive oil is not a good cooking fat. It doesn't like to be heated. So once the olive oil goes in, you can just get a little bit more heat on there, and then turn it off, and that is it. Our little vegetable barley risotto. All ready for plating. And then a big hearty bowl of this, and it'll keep you going for quite some time.